Good evening, everybody. I will be presiding over the meeting this evening in the absence of the Borough Council President. And at this time, I'd like everybody to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for the blessing of this day and for your many blessings on us and our community. Thank you for this opportunity to serve our residents and seek your guidance and wisdom in all that we do. In Jesus' name, amen.
We'll have the roll call.
President Ferguson.
Not here.
Vice President Gerard.
Here.
Councilmember Fagan.
Here.
Councilmember Presser.
Here.
Councilmember Stevens.
Here.
Mayor Gerard.
Here.
Borough Manager Snyder.
Here.
Borough Solicitor Harper.
Here. Okay. We will have the approval of the meeting agenda, the motion to approve the agenda of the May 4th, 2022 workshop meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilperson Kressler and a second by Councilman Stevens. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we will have public input now. Before we begin with the public input, I know a lot of you are here concerning the presentation coming up and also the conditional use hearing for Hattricks. I would ask you at this point to please hold off on those questions or comments until we reach those items. But for right now, we would take public input from anybody else, any other questions or concerns. So I'd ask that anybody interested to please rise, state your name and your home address here in the borough. Okay,
Martha Joel, 126 North Main Street.
yes.
I want to thank you for filling in the pothole in the turning lane to turn left onto Main Street.
Don't thank me, you can thank our public works.
I want to thank everyone.
You're welcome. Okay. Any other questions, comments, or general input? All right. All right, we will move on to announcements.
The next council meeting is May 18th. That's the regular meeting at 7:30 p.m. here in council chambers. There's a conditional use hearing for 390 West Vine Street. That's scheduled for May 18th at 7:30 p.m. here in council chambers. HUROC is scheduled to meet Wednesday, May 25th at 8 a.m. here in council chambers. The next planning commission meeting is scheduled for June 6th at 7 p.m. here in council chambers. The spring town hall is scheduled for May 11th at 7 p.m. with a meet and greet from 6 to 7 p.m. at the municipal building. The Hatfield Museum Historical Society is scheduled to meet on May 31st at 7 p.m. at the Hatfield Volunteer Fire Company, and the borough offices will be closed Monday, May 30th in observance of the Memorial Day holiday.
All right, thank you. And now we will have a presentation from the Alliance Housing Development LLC in relation to the Loudenslager School plot and what we're looking about doing. So.
Hello everyone, my name is Erica Shar. I'm with Kramer Marks Architects. I work for the Housing Alliance Development Group on this project to come up with the concept plan that we're showing tonight. I wanted to just give you an overview of the site plan here of what we're proposing. This is the current property. What you see here in this L shape is the existing building, which we are looking to keep the existing building. The current building was a school, and we are looking to convert it into housing. We will have at most 38 units, maybe 35, 38 units, somewhere in there. No more than 38 in the existing building. And we are also proposing two new construction buildings. So one will be up here on the Fairgrounds Road where there's an existing, I think, 2-story house there now, and then one will be in the back of the property. Just to orient you a little bit more, Cowpath Road is up here, and the Borough Township property line, or division line is through here. So everything happening in the borough is down here. So part of the existing building is within the borough's boundary. We're currently, again, proposing to keep that existing building, and we have some parking allocated in that space. Everything else is happening, well, the new construction is happening within the township side. So the existing building we're proposing is 38 units. The 2 new buildings we're each proposing 44 units in each building. And there's a potential for a medical office building that will be attached to this new construction building, sorry, up here. We are currently proposing 1-to-1 parking for the residents. So for each dwelling unit, there will be 1 parking space. There is also additional reserve space that is being shown down here, so 29 spaces in reserve, should they find the need for additional parking, but typically in this developments, we find that the need for parking is far less than a true market rate building. And then we also have separately allocated parking space up top that would be allocated for the medical office building. We are proposing for the overall development to do stormwater management, of course, as required by the township and the borough. We're proposing that, that's what you see shown up here. What else I missed? That's generally it. I think in terms of access to the property, we're looking at using the entrance up at the top off the Fairgrounds Road as the main entrance into the property. There's also going to be a secondary exit either here off the Cowpath or connecting to the existing driveway. That's to be determined. Again, this is still a concept plan, so we're still working through what those details are. But generally, we're thinking the Fairgrounds Road's entrance will be where we'll enter the property.
Hello, Mary Beth Altman, I live on Fairgrounds Road. My biggest question is traffic-wise. We've got the new development going over on 40-foot road. We've got one down on Township Line Road. Where is all this traffic now? 40-foot road now gets backed up, coming down to the stop sign there, as it is now, certain times of day. So there's times I can't even get out of my driveway on Fairgrounds because there's so much traffic on Fairgrounds Road. Have there been studies done as far as existing traffic, what's going to happen with all these new cars that may be coming into the area, and how come the township has not been involved in this yet? Have you contacted the township about this proposed development as of yet?
Yes.
And what has been their response? Because we've seen nothing about that yet. And that's my biggest concern. We've had these 2 more huge buildings, properties, tons of houses going in here in the township. And now you want to add more stress. Our water and sewer, is that going to be updated? What's going to happen to all this? How is this going to impact all of that? And I see you're putting a new basin in the front there. I'm very concerned about this. I grew up here my entire life, and to see all of this, some of this we needed. This is not needed as far as I'm concerned. And is it really going to be affordable, like you say? What is considered affordable anymore for people that are 55 and above? Seriously.
No, I'm from the area, so we were just having that conversation. I can totally understand.
As far as something was said to me about surge parking, where would this surge parking go?
Reserve parking?
Surge. I heard the word surge thrown in there about this.
From me?
No, not from you, from someone else about this.
Okay,
They were putting in some surge parking. There wasn't going to be any kind of overflow parking. They were calling it surge parking.
Okay, I don't know where that comment came from.
Well, it came from someone that's involved in it. That's why I was wondering, because you cannot park along Fairgrounds Road. You can't park on Cowpath.
No.
Can't park on the ball
Our
fields.
intent is not to have people parking
That's my
on the
biggest
street.
concern.
No.
And not everybody 55 and over has only one car. What are you going to do if 90% of them come in with 2 cars each? What are you going to do with all this?
So, Don can speak a little bit more to, the type of tenants that we have here and how the rents are allocated, but it is income qualified. Don, I don't know.
It is going to be a Section 8 more or less.
No,
No,
it's not Section 8. It's not
Okay.
Section 8, it's
No, it's not.
affordable.
Affordable means affordable. And it's what can people afford to pay. It's not $4,000 or $5,000 a month. There's a way we go through and calculate the income. But, to address your, question concerning parking, which is a valid question, by the way, I accept that. But you are correct. There's no way that we can say every person in here is not gonna have 2 cars. However, if you look at history, you look at the other similar type of projects that are already existing in this area. Most of them have less than 1 car park per unit. Historically, these people do not use a lot of their own automobile transportation. And I think, again, this is an introduction tonight. It's not meant to be the final, but I think we could point to and show you and show council here the existing facilities that are similar to this in the area and their parking requirements and what they actually use.
Okay, now which areas are you talking about? You talking about Franconia, Lansdale, Sourdough? Because you cannot go Hatfield to any of that. That's
Are you familiar with advanced living communities?
like how Dock is, how
Durstein?
Durstein is?
Durstein.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's very similar to that, and, I was actually, hopefully you liked Durstein, because I was actually the architect on that building, but, they, all, the parking lot there is never full, it's never full, and this is for seniors, so this is it 55 and older, or 62 and older?
Yeah, it's really very, very similar to that.
Yeah, so that's a big difference, because I'm 16, and I am no way ready to be in a place like that.
Yeah, so, and I would say, so like, and when you designate for senior housing, it's, I forget which one we are, 55 or 62, but in either case, what you typically find, again, typical, you can allow people at 62, but what you're typically finding is that you're in your 70s, 80s, 90s, that those are the people that are living here. Less and less of them have cars, less and less of them are able to drive, and similar to advanced living, they have transportation that they can come and provide, a truck, not a truck, a van that comes in and takes them around to shopping or
Okay,
doctor's
now, the
appointments.
medical building that is proposed to go in there, is that going to be for the residents there?
That would be 25, it would only be about 2,500 square feet.
Right, but I mean, would it be for the residents that are living in
It would
this
be
community?
geared to them, but of course, on the other hand, you can't exclude other people if they would come in there. You can't, but yes, it would be geared to serve those people.
A medical building, yeah.
It's more like a small medical office building,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
if they had podiatrists in there, physical therapists in there, that the idea is that the senior population that's living here, who doesn't have a lot of transportation access maybe, can just go right here.
Well, that's what I mean,
get-
but
yeah.
it's not like a patient first, where anybody can.
No,
That's what I mean, it's gonna be
no.
specifically
But
more
it's
or
not,
less
it's not
for
closed off
this
to
community.
it's not closed off to everyone
Right,
else.
right, I understand that, but
it-
you're basically putting it there for the community.
Yes.
Yeah.
Assuming it's gonna go in first of all, assuming second of all that it's gonna be the older people that you're gearing towards this.
Yes.
Yeah. Again, all of these things are based on the experience of the developers and what we see, and that's what's happening in advanced living too, and people are aging in place there and able to stay there for a very long time.
My big thing is like two 40-unit, 4-story buildings down there, that's high. That's extremely high to me. For this, they're gonna be like the highest buildings besides Hatfield Packing, but they're on their own property, they're not even involved in anything.
Well, we're actually,
That's just-
the intention right now is that they're not gonna be any higher than what the existing building is. The existing building, although it is a 3-story building, the floor-to-floor
One's
heights
underneath.
are, well, it's 3 stories total, yeah. So, but the floor-to-floors are very high. I think that the top portion of that building is almost 45 feet, if I'm not mistaken. So our buildings at most would be at
Will not top that, they're gonna go.
No,
for
no,
now,
so
I'm
they're
saying-
not gonna be any taller than what the existing building is.
How many stories is the existing building?
It's technically 3 stories,
Right, so just one
but
is the
they're,
basement,
it's
yeah,
just
yeah.
they're very high ceilings, it's a big structure.
Are you a part of Advantage Living?
Could we
No.
have,
No?
sorry, I'm sorry,
because we're doing minutes,
Oh,
it would
Victor
really be
Lewis,
helpful if
okay.
people said their name and their
Okay.
address
All right,
before
no
they
problem.
spoke, that's all.
Victor Lewis, 151 Orchard Lane. You're not part of Advanced Living because
I'm the architecture.
Mhm.
And the developer is not part of Advanced Living.
So it'd be different people.
It's Alliance Development
Mhm.
is the developer.
Okay, I want to clarify that.
Hi, I'm Catherine Valancourt. I live at 125 West School Street. So currently, my backyard backs up to the baseball fields. So if
Over
this
here.
were, yeah, if this were to go through, I'm trying to kind of determine where my house is on this map. So would I be then
The
looking?
baseball fields are back here.
Never went with the school district, that property anymore.
So I would be then looking out, instead of looking at open space like an open parking lot, I'd be looking at a
Buildings,
three-story.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll be looking at a building.
Yeah, this would be the building here.
Mhm. So make sure you have shades on your back windows.
And then for the extra parking, you have it in the grass, is that grass area right there?
This
I'm
here,
just trying
this
to
is
determine-
reserved parking, so, or what we're showing as reserved parking.
So where now is that?
Isn't there someone's house
Low-
right there?
There
No.
are, yes.
Snyder's house.
There's
No.
a small office building there now.
No, there's nobody's houses over here, there's a small outbuilding that's right here.
Right.
But that would be demolished, it's
Right.
not a
Well,
usable
okay.
building, but
Snyder's driveway goes right around that.
this is the existing driveway is here and currently connects into the property right here. So the houses are over here and this is the property line. So we're not touching anybody else's house. We're showing these 29 parkings in reserve, should they have the need to build them at a later date. We don't feel, again, based on the experience of the developer, we don't feel that there's a need for that much parking. And again, as we all know, we have more weather events, there's more rain happening, the stormwater management is always a big thing. So, and while we have to comply with everything, the township and all their guidelines and requirements, we're going to do that, but if we don't need more parking and more pervious surface, then why do that?
Right.
So we wanted to show it in reserve, so.
That was my other question, about the basin being in front of the building on Cow Path. When all the impervious surface is in the back, why are they putting the basin in front? Does it
The
run down?
basin-
Does it, I mean, is it
Oh, yeah.
Come
Yeah,
downhill?
the
Right.
site runs,
a little bit slightly
This
downhill
way?
there? Okay, that's why I was
mostly,
wondering why the
yeah,
basin was
mostly
going
this
there.
way, there's a little bit of pitch
Okay.
here over in this direction.
That was my question about why the basin was going into the front
Yeah, and again, this
over
is
on the
not
side
a-
where most of the
No.
paving's gonna be.
Yeah, no, so this is not a engineered stormwater
Right.
management plan, this is a concept plan.
right.
So this is where we wanna show a basin. We will potentially and most likely have something that's under the parking lot in addition to that, it just
There's already
depends
drains
on.
there and stuff there.
Yeah, it all just depends on, you know, what the requirements end up being, but this, again, conceptually, that's where we wanna put it.
So I know this is, both Hatfield and Township and Borough, but has there been discussion for other uses of the existing building, that's something that would benefit Hatfield as a whole?
I love
Like
this
library,
building.
community center, just something other than apartment buildings, cause to piggyback off of her comment, we have so much housing being built up here, that do we really need more housing to add to, congestion? 'Cause I'm sure there's gonna be cars going in and out.
There will be
know,
cars, yeah, I
and-
mean, that's, the reality is that there will be
And during
cars,
the school year,
but
it's already congested right there, cause you have the
Mhm.
elementary school right down the road.
Mhm.
in terms of need,
Mhm.
there's not a lot of affordable housing. There's not a lot that people can actually afford to live in, especially as a senior. A lot of stuff that's being built is market rate, and
Mhm.
we were just talking about, my parents live in Drescher, and they cannot downsize anywhere here.
So has
But
there
there
been
is-
other,
Well,
I can't answer
well,
that.
well,
That's-
Ma'am, if I can answer your question, because, we feel very strongly there's a valid market here. And we are here, in 2017, a family project was proposed on this site, and the rezoning was accepted. And so we've tried to come up with a concept that is a lot less intrusive than a family project, because a family project generates substantially more parking than what we're proposing. So we do not really have anything to do with, alternate uses of the property. So
When you
that-
say family project, are you talking about like community center?
No, I'm talking about.
Apartment building for families.
Apartment
okay.
building for families.
Okay.
Younger families, children, stuff like that. So, I mean, that's what we do as a business, is we develop senior housing. And so, you know, that would be up to someone else, not us, to figure out how to fund a library. I will say, this will produce taxes, which will be a benefit.
But it's gonna
to-
raise houses.
Yes, ma'am.
And
You
our
said
property
you're
values.
convinced that there's a need. How did you determine that need?
Well, there's a market study. We have to
Whose
undertake
markets-
it all.
Who did that study?
You know, ma'am, I don't know, but I could find that out for you.
Because do we have any idea, I mean, how is Dock full?
Excuse me?
Dock Woods community, is that full, is that over, you know?
I will say this, most of the other existing similar projects have a substantial waiting list, sometimes as much as 5 and 6 years.
Yeah.
Specifically for our senior development, senior affordable developments, there's a tremendous need.
Okay.
We just did another project and we had people sleeping out overnight to get on the list.
Yes, ma'am.
That's
Yeah,
how
I
bad
just-
they wanted it.
Alicia Owens, 215 J Drive. Just a question about, when you say affordable, what is, like, I don't want affordable use in the same sentence, like, what is affordable?
Affordable would be, a rate that, is more commensurate with what I would call middle income,
Median income.
median
It's based on
income.
median income.
You know, this is not $5,000 and $6,000 a month. So, you know, what would be, there's a calculation that you use to get to what's median income.
So you're basically going off their social security or whatever kind of money they're getting at the agencies? they
Well,
talk
No,
about.
it's the median
I mean-
income of the area, so you
Yeah,
take
yeah,
the
the area,
general
not-
income of the.
But you can't do that when you're talking about seniors that are in their
No,
sixties.
no,
late
so it's,
seventies and
the
stuff.
median income is based on the area.
Okay.
And then what they pay is either 80% or 60% based on those income levels. So it's an adjusted scale so that it can be determined that way.
So, for some people, still isn't gonna be affordable housing, is what you're basically saying. Because median income around here anymore is not only $20,000 anymore.
Hi, Tracy Friend, 20 School Street. Piggybacking on what we were just talking about with the income and based on that, we have homes going up all over the area, $500,000, $750,000,
Mhm.
$350,000 on East School Street. A senior is not, you can't, I mean, there's, like, if it's a rent control, like how Valley Vista Apartments in Satterton, that's based run through, I believe, the county or low income. How is that, we need to know more about how that's gonna be gauged, or if we would be able to get into that.
Well-
Cause we lived here our whole lives, and now you're gonna build this.
Yes, ma'am.
And then it's gonna be like, well, hold it, I can't sell my house and move in here because someone from 2 towns over is gonna get on the list.
Right.
That's where, like, who's gonna qualify where
Okay.
these people are gonna come from?
If I may answer that question, please, ma'am. Tonight was an introduction to this concept. There's a long way to go. There's many a slip between the hand and the lip. You know, so this was an introduction. So the purpose of tonight is not to answer every question, but not to suggest your question is invalid. It's very valid. But this was meant to be an introduction to the process. There's going to be other meetings associated with this where we will provide greater detail of what we're going to do, and there will be eventually a vote to say, do we get to rezoning or we don't get to rezoning?
Okay.
So tonight, you know, was not designed to answer every question. And I'm not trying to evade you. It's just, what was the purpose of tonight?
My question then, is the township going to be involved in all these same meetings?
Yeah.
To the borough, I'm asking, because
votes on it,
since
the
this is
borough or the
mostly
township?
township property,
Right,
why is the
yes.
township not involved in this?
All right,
right?
so hold on, let me help you with the law here.
Okay.
That's my
That's
job,
awesome.
okay? All right, the borough controls the zoning in the borough.
Right,
The township controls the zoning in
right,
the
I
township.
understand that.
This project, if they go forward with it, will have to go through both processes.
Right.
Okay? So if it needs, zoning hearing board relief, it would go to the zoning hearing board, which sits like judges. It's residents of the borough who are, you know, your neighbors, and they sit like judges and they make decisions about whether or not to grant variances or special exceptions. If it's merely land development and all the zoning is correct, or it has all the zoning it needs, then it's gonna go first to the planning commission. It's a public meeting, you can all attend and ask your questions, and then it'll go to borough council, who are your elected officials. So there's a process. In addition, I think you alluded to this, the stormwater management will be reviewed by the borough's engineer. And he'll say whether it'll work or not. You know, they have an obligation to control the water coming on and going off their subdivision. And this exact same process will happen in the township.
Okay.
Okay? And the township's called commissioners, if you know them, but it's the same thing. It would go, if it needs zoning relief, it has to go to the zoning board. And then if it just needs to be development, stormwater, parking, and that kind of jazz, it would go first to their planning commission and then to their, board of commissioners. All of those meetings are public. Okay?
Right.
Right.
Right, I
You
understand
probably
that.
won't get notices of any, except if you live close enough, zoning hearing board. So you're just gonna have to watch the borough website and the township website.
Okay, well, my question is, what if the township does not go along with this?
Then they don't build.
Okay, you can, but how come you both are not,
It's not simultaneous.
yeah, it's like, how come they're not involved in this from the get-go? I mean, like
First of
you
all,
said
this
they
is,
are.
this
It's
is
because
just
it's
merely a
planning.
sketch plan.
Right, just.
It's a sketch plan.
Right,
There's
information.
no application,
Right.
there's nothing for borough council to vote on,
Okay.
nothing.
Okay, that's what I was.
So they came in to show it. I don't know, are you doing something similar in the township?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Do you know when
Okay.
that is?
It's scheduled, but I'm not sure when.
Okay, the township does also have a website, they're pretty good about posting stuff, so keep an eye on it.
They had nothing about it when they were called about this.
Okay, well, they're aware of it. Jamie talks to, the township manager over there.
We've been in touch with the township, they're well aware of this project. But there has been no meetings or no public meetings or
Okay.
anything like that.
Okay, sorry, just wanted to insert that so everybody had the same set of facts to go on.
I'm Tracy Mascaro, on Denbay Drive, 2132. Is it intended to be done all at one time, or is it a phased project?
It's a phased project. It'll take about 6 or 7 years to build the whole thing out. The first phase would be the renovation of the old Log and Slogger School. After that is up and occupied, then we would propose to build the second one. After
Okay,
that's
what I was
up and
waiting for.
occupied, we would propose
Thank you,
to
Tracy.
build.
Those were other questions. Yeah, I'm all for that.
One more thing, so I see the parking, I have the same concerns with parking, that I don't, but you have your data that says that you don't need more than one per unit, but I question that. But anyway, you sort of said that when you started to talk about the parking, that it's an exit onto Cowpath and an entrance off of Fairgrounds. Is that how it's supposed to be? Is it a one-way flow through? And are you gonna have a
What
bunch
we're
of people trying to come out onto Cowpath Road that?
No, what we're showing right now, everything, all these, the drive aisles and everything is for two-way driving. But the intent is that the entrance and exit, again, as of right now, and what we've discussed with Borough and Township is that the goal is that Fairgrounds would be the main entrance and exit, because Cowpath Road is a busier road and we don't wanna have people coming this way. Now, whether we connect right here or
I don't think it makes sense to connect through this driveway, but there's also the school street here, you know, does it make sense that this comes through here? And is that just emergency access? Those are all things we have to work through yet, but conceptually, the entrance off of Fairgrounds Road is where we want people to come in and out of.
And is there intention, I'm not sure when this decision is made, but like if there's so much more traffic, would you be putting a traffic light there at Fairgrounds Road and Calpath?
If it would be required of us to do so, I mean, if they want us to do the traffic study, we would be doing a traffic study and seeing what.
But they need to do a traffic study.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, ma'am, did you?
Yes, I'm Karen Renner, 38 Holiday Avenue, Hatfield. I live right off the Calpath. I've lived there for 15 years. There are 2 housing developments that are being built and constructed. Right next to where I live is one of them. Over 40 houses are gonna be going in there. There's another 2 minutes down the street. They actually just installed a traffic light at Calpath and Durstein a few months ago because of the numerous accidents that were occurring. And there's also another housing development going on 40-foot road right across from Lowe's. So my concern is instead of putting another development, another housing development, another development for 55 plus, I think Hatfield could benefit by having a library. We don't have any library here in Hatfield, and I think that would benefit the community. I know I have to go to Telford Indian Valley Library. I don't have a computer. I choose not to have a computer. But if I do need to use a computer, I go to the Telford Library. But it's a drive. And I think that there are probably a lot of other residents in the community that feel the same way I do, and that a library in Hatfield would benefit a lot of us.
So a lot of things that would benefit this community, other than a housing development like this. There's a lot of things that could benefit. These kids have nowhere to go here, like we never did when we were kids, there was nothing close by to go to.
So hold on for a second, cause this is a sketch plan for development. You guys own the land, or do you have it under agreement?
We have it under agreement.
Okay, so neither the borough nor the township owns this ground.
Right, okay.
Okay, so you might be right about the library, but it would probably be a discussion about some other site. Because neither the township nor the borough has this ground available.
I did not know that.
Right, so Jamie told me I should say that, so that's what I'm at, okay? She's much smarter than I am, so thank you. Anyway, when they say they have it under agreement, it's probably subject to a zoning contingency or something like that. They have standing to bring an application, they just haven't filed one yet, just so you know, okay?
I love the idea about turning the old school into apartments. I love that idea. Just like they did with the Turbo building over Lansdale. I love that. But I just don't see the need for 2 more 44 unit buildings. That's my biggest concern. I'm all about reusing that school, because that's a beautiful school inside if anybody's ever been in there. Anyway.
Glenn Snyder, 215 North Main Street, directly across from this building, in the first house, this side, the Hatfield side of the township line. I have numerous concerns about this. I'm not sure how familiar you are with that old building. I don't know how many times you've been through it. The only reason I say this is probably back in the late 60s when Biblical Seminary moved into that building. I was in an architectural engineering firm over in Little Rock. We put all new air conditioning in that building. So I'm very familiar with that building. It's a timber frame building. It's not a concrete frame, it's not a steel frame, it's a timber frame building with the corridors are like 10 feet wide or even wider than that. To me, when the other developers came in, when they were going to tear that building down, I was a little bit more familiar with and anxious to see something go in across from there, because the old building is looking kind of tattered anymore. And to try to rehab that and put apartments in that building, I just think that's a hazard that, even though most of the building is in the township, it's a hazard that could be overlooked if the building was torn down. Now, I know that's cost a lot of money, but it's not cost a lot of money to make that building habitable, to meet all the fire codes and all the other codes that would be needed to make that 19, not quite, 22 is when that building was built. And so it's way outdated as far as normal today's construction. The other thing I'm concerned about, living right across the street from us, I see what happens to retention ponds after a while. They throw cattails in there, and yeah, they're nice for a while, but if there has to be a retention basin there, I would like to see an underground retention basin with a lawn over top of it, rather than a big hole across the street from my house. Even though I might not be in that house that many more years, someday I've got to sell this, and if this construction gets going, it's going to, I feel, devalue the property that I own right now. So those are my concerns, and thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I want to Wilcox, 32 School Street, so I have a couple things noted here. If you can answer them at the end, I'll just read through them all. But someone from the borough, I don't know. I know we had gotten a letter on East School Street years back, and I guess that development kind of died. That was under a different developer. So at the time that went through, I guess, zoning hearing board. So would that have, whatever was granted in that, would that have to go back through zoning hearing board since it's a different developer?
Sounds like a lawyer question. If the relief they need is exactly what was given to the previous developer, it runs with the property. Variances are given with the property. Now, if their plans change so that the relief they need is different, they'd have to go again, and if there's changes that change whatever the relief was, then they have to go again, and they know that. But the relief the earlier guys got, they would have.
Okay. So some of my concerns, are the same as most people's when it concerns development, traffic, stormwater, impact to the school district, which doesn't seem like it's going to be any here, but traffic, I mean, between Fairgrounds and West School, including those two streets, there's 5 points of access there. I'm on one of them. And, even North Main and Calpet, I mean, sometimes it's difficult to get out. So I was listening to the planning commission meeting. I know you mentioned at that meeting and here tonight that you intend Fairgrounds to be the primary point of access, but it is showing the driveway, so I'm interested to see how that develops, because again, I mean, that's another one that could potentially add to the issue of just getting out onto Calpet. Heard in the planning commission meeting and tonight that a lot of these people don't drive, so, given that, it might be true, but then what are we doing to improve pedestrian safety? So I live on the school, my kids walk to school, they cross there at the crossing at West School and North Main. A few years back when we just started walking, there weren't even signs to warn people that there's a crossing there, and thankfully the borough put them in, and then they put in the sign in the street, so our improvement's gonna be made to increase, pedestrian safety. I know I've seen trail crossings where you can actually push a button and it'll put strobes up to increase that, so, if this does go forward, to think about that. They mentioned in the planning commission meeting that the electric will continue to service the existing building, and that the borough would like to service the sewer in all the buildings, and with that, I know on East School they replaced the sewer in the street, and I think there's a plan to do it on North Main too, but, can the borough's infrastructure support additional capacity? If it's going somewhere else, is that gonna, expedite, any premature failure of that, sewer pipe? So, just a couple things. I realize you can't answer them, but.
Well, just to say, on some of those, and
in terms of like utilities, in terms of electric, sewer, water, gas, whatever we're using, before we submit these projects for the financing and the application, we have to have a letter from the various utility companies confirming that they can support us. And if they can't, give us that letter, if they don't have the capacity at that time, then we're never gonna get our financing and it's never gonna move forward. So we have to have that now, before we move forward.
Most over 55s that I've looked into, they have like a gym, a dining hall, they have all these other amenities. You're offering none of that with these additional buildings, or just resident, resident?
No, so it's, I talked about the units, there are, all of the units that are gonna be here are one-bedroom units. They have a full kitchen, full bathroom, it's totally independent living. Each one of the buildings that we're proposing would have a community room. Maybe 800, 900 square foot community room that can be used for various things, whether they use that for, just, general community group meetings, or, within the building, community meetings, or fitness. They sometimes have like people come in and do like fitness programs in those spaces. We also will always have a management office, a support service office in this building. So there's an office space for a support service person to come to the building and help people get connected to various services that are in the area to help support them.
So there won't be a pool or a fitness room per se, like with
No
fitness
pool.
equipment?
No.
There won't be a dining where,
No
like,
dining.
where you have a dining plan and you go
No.
to nothing?
No.
Brian Quigley on 19 West Lincoln Avenue. You had mentioned about the apartments and low income or lower income, median income, and how you do a calculation. Are the rents subsidized, and if so, by whom? They're not. Okay. Second part of that question, you mentioned that there are tax benefits to both the township and the borough. Can you expand on that a little bit in terms of once this project is done?
Well, the tax benefits are derived by the real estate taxes.
Per unit of the.
Well, there's an appraised value of the buildings, and then based on that, and the millage and all that, then.
Gotcha, so the rent collected is going to obviously pay those real estate taxes to the borough and the township?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Thanks.
Mike Scarry, 212J Drive. Might be more of a lawyer question, but if, say this all gets approved, is there a possibility, or would it have to go through new zoning for you guys to not make it 55 and up? Or would it have to be that if that's what's presented, or could you change it when you're in the middle of building 2, could you change that to just apartments for anybody?
Well, yes, that is. Our plans and specifications have to be approved. So these plans and specifications are these buildings are specifically designed for a specific market. Older people, 1 bedroom, this, that. There are no 2 bedrooms, there are no 3 bedrooms, there are no, this is designed for senior living. So, and the funding is specifically for senior living. So if we wanted to change after we were already funded, we would be in default of our funding if we changed. So it would be a heck of a legal mess. Put it like this, there's no economic value once you have got these plans approved, and once you're under construction, there's no economic value to try to change it. It ain't gonna work. Even if we could do it from zoning, it's not gonna work in terms of the tenants. It can't work. I mean, we'd have to come in and redo the building. And then that goes back to plans. Then the plans would have to be approved here. So it would be very, very difficult to do that.
Is some of that funding federal and or state, or is it private lending?
It's private.
I assumed incorrectly, apparently, that this was the advanced living because that's who owns the other part of the old seminary property, where they're building the habitat houses, but.
Right.
I don't know where I heard it, but I don't know if it's planning commission or just somewhere else, are they deed restricted as age restricted units, property, or, and then I heard tax credit funding, is that what this property is?
Okay, first, it will not be deed restricted. Second of all, tax credits. There is a program called the 9% tax credit program. And these are basically funded through tax credits. And so what happens is the developer will get an allocation of tax credits through the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency. A bank will buy those tax credits, and then they will provide the money for the construction.
I just had a question, it might be for council to answer this, but how much, when you go to make a decision on a project like this, how much weight does resident input have? Because I think from what I'm hearing, there's strong opposition to at least the 2 additional buildings. So how much weight does that have on your decision when you go to?
All right, let me answer that one. It's a lawyer question, sorry. A property owner has a right to develop his property in accordance with the zoning. So if everything they propose meets the zoning requirements, or if they go to the zoning board and get relief from the zoning requirements, Borough Council has to approve it, even if the world hates it, okay? So, and every piece of property in the borough, as every piece of property in the township, is zoned for something. So if it's consistent with the zoning requirements and they meet the other requirements, the Borough Council has to approve it. Along the way, there are things that could be waived, but not zoning. Only what are called subdivision and land development requirements. Stormwater falls under that and things like that. So there could be some waivers, but not of something like the use or the number of buildings or something like that. Those are zoning, and they have to do whatever the zoning code says. Another lawyer question?
Yes.
Okay.
And,
Is that all right, Mr. Chair?
Okay, ma'am, go ahead.
and has this already been zoned this way?
Yeah, I'm not sure I know what the zoning is on this, do you? I mean, I know it had one previous approval for this type of a use, and that was the zoning board decision a few years back, 2017, am I right?
Yes.
So the use is approved. Where they have the buildings, whether they can have a medical office, how many units they can have, I'm not sure that that is true, because the borough's zoning officer and engineer have not reviewed plans. Like, that's what you do. You get the plans, you review them, see if there's enough stormwater management, enough parking, enough, for the units that are on there. And that has not happened, because this is just a concept. However, the use was once approved by the zoning board.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I had one, I'll make my last question, because I was gonna ask the history of zoning of the property, because I looked up Hatfield Townships, and there's a zone for residential, and I wasn't sure about the boroughs. But that was changed with the zoning hearing board, and then, I guess the second thing, I mean, I've been to enough of these meetings that, when something's existed, it's basically grandfathered in, I forget the term.
Right, non-conforming. This is R1 in the borough, which is single-family houses, I believe. But this was a biblical seminary when that last decision came down. So it was already a non-conforming use. In other words, it wasn't single-family houses, okay? So when you have a non-conforming use, you're allowed to continue your non-conforming use. If you want to change your non-conforming use, you have to go to the zoning board and explain what use you want to do. And my understanding is in 2017, a prior applicant did that, and age-restricted housing was approved as a change from one non-conforming use to another.
And roughly the same amount of units. And I think, as she indicated, we have to come in and present, our case, and then they will go back over what was approved, and they'll say how many units, and how many this, and how many that, and how much is what we're proposing in line with what was approved. And then, sometimes there's some jawing back and forth, and then sometimes there's not. So it all depends on, the situation as presented.
You said there's a need for this. Is the building that's happening on 40-foot road, isn't that?
Excuse me?
Is the building that's happening on 40-foot road, isn't that over 55?
Suppose, well,
No, it's not what they're.
it's an adult community, now they call it.
Adult community, okay, so,
It's supposed to be an notified community.
yeah.
But they changed the wording for that.
You have to ask the township that question, cause that property is
That's
in the
fair.
township.
That's fair, okay.
They changed it from a
Thank you.
55 to an adult.
However, there's a difference between 55 and over housing and an age restricted or units designed for people who are older, and I don't know the difference, but am I right?
Well, they weren't
architect?
sure if it's 55 or 62 was your age requirement, right?
Yeah, and I think, this will come back in later with our specific plans. But if you take the average, she had indicated, if you take the average age in these units, 90% of them are women, and they're 80, 85 years old. So, there's a variety of reasons why you get someone in at 62 or something like that, but the average age in these is 80, 85, and the average one person, and the average person is a woman. Now, the younger you get, you'll have some men, and you'll still have some couples, but the older you get, the more female. The guys die off. The guys die off, and the women live, and they live there together.
We get these details from the township, but I think you're talking about the Del Webb development.
Yeah.
That's market rate, it's 55 and above, but it's not age restricted.
No,
Right.
it's adult.
Right.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you can have kids, you can still have
You
children.
could have a number of them, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming they're all going to be handicap accessible, all these apartments?
Well,
And with handicap bathrooms, like full handicap bathrooms. I mean, I know there's codes you have to apply, and put into use. For people that age, you don't want a tub to have to step over and get in the shower.
Right.
You just want to be able to walk in your bathroom, throw in the shower, and just have everything drained down the surround, and go down. That's the other question I'm gonna ask, because people have already been asking me about this place.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. Yeah,
And
so,
most of these types of facilities have like step up, like you have like your independent living, and then you have like your assisted living, and like.
Yeah, this is
none
not
none of that,
assisted
this is
living.
just,
Something like this, yeah.
this is just,
Yeah.
This is like
live here.
Yeah.
And we're
Assisted living
certain
has
there's a need for
congregate
this.
meals.
Yeah.
Assisted living has
Just live
congregate
there.
meals.
They have hairdressers there.
There are no congregate meals here. This is independent living.
I don't know that anybody wants to be on the waiting list.
The
for that.
report where you said
Wouldn't you want
that
to be on the
you
waiting list for
did
that?
studies and there's a need for this, is that report public?
Excuse me?
That report, that study that you did saying that there's a need for this type of housing in Hatfield, is that report public?
Well, we had to pay someone to do a market study. So,
You paid them, oh.
yeah, we paid them.
Is it public knowledge? Like, can we look at the report? That's what I'm asking.
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. I'm not gonna take it off the table.
Why
but
don't you ask your
I
lawyer
can't-
that
I can't
question?
speak-
Why don't you ask your lawyer that question? Okay?
Ask my lawyer that question.
and just to answer your question on the accessible, like handicap, we are required by code to have a certain number of handicap units,
Right.
which we will have. And then as we design for senior housing specifically, we have all of them designed to meet, there's turning radius, there's blocking in for grab bars, and we don't do tubs, we do the roll-in showers, so
Okay,
all
okay,
that is
that-
taken
that-
into
that would-
consideration.
well,
Yeah.
Will there be elevators in these buildings?
Yes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, do we have any further questions so we can move on to other items on the agenda? All right, well, thank you very much for your presentation. It was informative. I wanna stress one other thing. This is in the very, very, very preliminary stages. It's not something that's gonna be happening overnight. It's not something that they're gonna start digging 6 months from now. So keep that in mind. We still have to go through the township, and it's gonna take some time, so, you know, this was just the first step in this path. Thank you
Is there
very
a
much.
projected start time?
Excuse
Is there
me?
like a projected start?
You'll have to ask them. I can't answer that for you.
The earliest we would be able to start construction would be end of 2023. That's best case scenario.
All right, we'd like to move on. The next item on the agenda is the, good night. The next item on the agenda is the conditional use hearing for Hatfield Sports Bar and Grill at 64 East Lincoln Avenue. And Kate, I'm gonna turn this over to you.
Great, so where's our applicant for Hat-Tricks? Oh, there you are, I'm sorry, I thought I saw you and then I missed you. We have such a big crowd. If anybody is not interested in this, feel free to leave, because we're moving on with the agenda. Since there are, though, a number of new people in the room to the process, I'm just gonna explain it to everybody before we start. And then, Mr. Weimer is gonna be sworn in by the court reporter, and he is going to have to carry the ball and run with it, okay? This is a conditional use application, on behalf of, let's see, get the right name here, okay? Weimer Real Estate LLC, some of you may know it as Hat-Tricks. Mr. Weimer is the applicant, and he is applying for outdoor dining with outdoor live entertainment. So I'm gonna mark a number of exhibits. A conditional use hearing is where the use that he wants is permitted as long as he gets the permission of Borough Council. And no one proves that it will be dangerous to the health, safety, and welfare of the borough or the neighbors. So that's what a conditional use is, and I'm gonna mark these exhibits.
But I already have outdoor dining.
You do have outdoor dining.
Right, it's for the bar outside.
Okay, stop for a second, please. Kim, our court reporter, is taking down what people say.
Right.
And this is just like being in court, because she can only take one person speaking at a time, and we have to go in order because it's a hearing. And the notes of testimony, which is what she's typing up, have to be understandable later. We have to do it this way, because that's how a conditional use is handled. That's why I started with it. That's why I don't want anybody in the audience to yell out. And the applicant gets the floor, but he doesn't have it yet. And you haven't been sworn in yet, Bob, so you're going to have to wait.
Okay.
I have some preliminaries I have to handle, and they would involve marking exhibits. So A1 is the application for conditional use, which is filed by Weimer Real Estate LLC. Part of this application, I draw this to Borough Council's attention because it came in after the application was filed, but is still part of it, is we are seeking a conditional use permit for Weimer Restaurant Inc. to be able to use our outside bar that has been in use for 10 years and to have outside entertainment on Saturdays from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. for bands. The bands play in front of the patio, facing the patio, in a rented area in a blocked off area. They will stop promptly at 11 p.m. and will not go past this time from April 15th to November 15th. That is what was applied for, and that is A1. A2 is a copy of a deed, from a corrective deed from Weimer Real Estate LLC to Weimer Real Estate LLC, showing that the ownership of the property in question is owned by Weimer Real Estate LLC. A3 is a previous deed, same date, from Schmoxy's Real Estate LLC to Weimer Real Estate LLC, showing that the applicant owns the property and was purchased by him. There is one borough exhibit so far. The borough has B1, which is proof of publication. meaning the borough paid to have this advertised in a newspaper of general circulation so that anybody who's interested could show up and comment. Mr. Weimer, do you want to be sworn in? Just stand, please, get sworn in, and keep your voice up so that the court reporter can hear everything, okay?
Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
State your name and spell your first and last name.
Robert, Robert, Weimer, Weimar.
Now, raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You can present your case.
Okay.
Okay, you can start, or I can, give the board the conditions that they're supposed to be listening for. I think it might be good for you if I give you that,
Sure.
unless you've already looked at, ordinance 545 and you're familiar with it.
I'm not, but yeah.
Okay, so in considering, outdoor dining, the zoning ordinance says, if the use includes an outdoor bar, live entertainment, or live music, or if it encroaches on a public right-of-way, Borough Council shall consider the following guidelines. The level of noise associated with outdoor dining shall not disturb the right of quiet enjoyment of neighboring properties, therefore sound amplified by speakers or other electric means will not be permitted after 11 p.m. Outdoor dining or an outdoor bar must be associated with and connected to a restaurant or tavern that prepares and serves food. Outdoor dining may be permitted year-round. Outdoor dining with an outdoor bar or live entertainment or live music shall be limited to regularly posted hours not to exceed 11 p.m. Under no circumstances may the sound at the nearest residential property exceed 70 decibels. Then it goes on to talk about what kind of furnishings you can have, outside, tables, chairs, umbrellas, use of planters, posts with ropes, iron fencing to define areas. Refuse facilities shall be provided, trash shall be continually cleaned by the restaurant staff, and outdoor dining shall not impede pedestrian safety and flow. That's if you were on the sidewalk, which I don't believe you are. Lighting associated with outdoor dining shall not disturb the right of quiet enjoyment of neighboring properties. Lights such as floodlights or spotlights are not permitted. Open flames or heating devices are permitted if approved by the fire marshal, and the applicant shall comply with all other existing zoning ordinances as applicable. So now I think it would be appropriate, we turn over to Mr. Weimer. You explain to Borough Council how you meet all those requirements of the ordinance.
I have one question though.
Sure.
So you're saying the outside dining can't be after 11 o'clock?
No, outside dining can be, but not if it has, live entertainment.
I agree with that.
Good.
Okay. So
tell Borough Council what you plan to do and how you comply with all these things I just read.
Right.
Okay?
So as far as keeping our areas clean and all that, we do that anyway. We don't have big spotlights or anything like that, or only spotlights on the building which faces the parking lot and the patio itself right now. The bar that's been out there for 10 years already is a full setup bar. It's been approved by the health department. As far as the band goes, we're keeping the band to a certain genre, okay, which is classic rock. We're not doing anything that's not classic rock. So we keep the music a lot more friendly for everybody. Now the band's not in a rented area. I think that was one of the issues. Is it in a tent?
Right.
It's tented. They're under tents. So in case there's any rain or anything like that, the band's equipments don't get destroyed.
Okay, so Weimer Real Estate actually owns all the land that this outdoor dining with live entertainment will be on.
Correct.
And that was a typo, it should have said tented.
I did say tenant, but it got to rent somehow.
Okay. Good to know.
They will be, they're under tents. They do face the patio area when they play, so they're not facing the back of the parking lot or the front of the parking lot. And once we get the pavilion up that we already got zoned for, it'll be facing that, where people will be sitting, you know. We close at 12 o'clock every night. We don't stay open later than that. So we're, you know, and the reason for this is that I don't want the people that come in after 12 o'clock at night, because they're usually been drinking somewhere else, and there's no amount of money worth getting a dime from somebody for them to go and be out killing somebody on a highway. That's for sure. All my staff is ramp trained, as well as myself. So our serving practices are what they should be. And we expect everybody who is at our location to act accordingly and to act responsibly and dress responsibly. We don't allow wife beaters outside or inside on the property, because it's just not the way we want things to be. I'm trying to make this more of a nice place for everybody to come, and more of a family place, you know?
All right, so let me just stop you there for a second. Explain what ramp training is, and when you say wife beaters, you mean shirts that are sort of open, right?
Wife beaters are a shirt that comes down like this and curls like this.
It's a white tank.
It's an undershirt.
White tank,
You
undershirt.
know, we allow tank tops, we don't allow wife beaters. The wife beaters are the ones that are skin tight.
Okay.
You know, and look, I
All right,
believe
now explain what ramp training is, because
it's
that's important too.
responsible alcohol management training, okay, is what ramp training is. So it's required by the state of any new employee right now. If you work in a bar, you have to be ramp trained. If you're not ramp trained, you cannot work in the bar. So, and every one of our people are ramp trained, including myself. You know, we've been doing this for 15 years at this location. I was at a different location in Warminster before I bought this place, and I was the liquor, I was this tavern association president for 4 years for Bucks and Montgomery County. So, as far as the rules go, I try to keep everything where they should be. Even during this whole thing with the pandemic, we followed all the rules, 100%, because it's just the right thing to do. It doesn't cause people problems, and you don't get fined that way. You know, and we care about our neighbors, we really do. You know, I don't want to make anybody upset. In 15 years of having this location, I've had the cops here 10 times. In 15 years, one fight. In 15 years. So I think I've done a pretty good job of keeping this to be a good business for this community. You know, and I understand that it's a tighter knit because the houses are closer and all that. I get that. I really do. Okay? But generally right around our building, there's not a lot of houses. You know, we had the community, the older community that's right next to us, which we've never had any complaints from them. All right. My neighbor across the street, who is and the reason why I came to the court with all this to begin with, to the borough was when Mike was here, was because the LCV's rules are insane. Any noise from your property, from a speaker, from a jukebox, from anything, cannot leave your property. So that means if I have my windows open on the street side, and somebody decides, oh, we're just gonna take and call the state police on these people, they take you to court. Well, they did this to me. Both my bars got fined on the same exact day. 2 bars 7 miles apart from each other. Got a fine for noise ordinances, okay? Because somebody else did that had Mothers Against Drunk Driving, called them, okay? So I went to court, took my neighbors, my closest neighbors from both locations with me to the court, okay? And still got fined, even though the neighbors said they'd never had a problem with the noise in our location, because that's how it works with the LCV. The LCV has their own judges, You don't go to Bucks County Court, you don't go to Montgomery County Court, you go to LCB Court. They have their own judges, and they have to make money, and this is how they do it, okay? So, the reason why I came to Mike was to get this situation when it's during these, like, from April 15th to, what did I say? November 15th, okay? Weather permitting, of course, because we're not gonna have bands out there playing when it's cold outside, and we stopped them early last year because of that. You know, it's, so I don't have to keep on going through this nonsense with the LCP. I need to be able to stay in business. I employ 8 people, okay? Who depend on me to pay their bills. And it's hard enough as it is with the 10 clubs around me that are giving away their product, that take the majority of our customers because they are able to do that. I can't do that. I still have a mortgage, I have an SBA loan because of this, okay, because of everything that happened in the pandemic, and I have to pay my bills. So, you know, our outside bar is a staple. You know, it's been there for 10 years, people like it, they don't cause problems there, they don't argue there. You know, they're just, we have good people that come to our place. And having that outside bar is one of the most important things to us. The entertainment is just an added feature. It gives us something that the other places all around us don't have. They have it in Lansdale. They play bands on First Fridays outside in a very closed community, just like the Borough is, okay? But they have that, they are allowed to do that stuff over there. This is why we started doing bands. So I came to Mike with this, was because, so I had something that is gonna give us some more business. And now I got PJs going down the street from me, across from that adult community. They just bought the pizza pub. So that's more business I have to worry about losing at this point. You know, and I just need you know, something to help me to get through this, so I can stay afloat, keep my business running, you know, and do things I need to keep making my business a good business and repairing my building and everything else. So that's it.
All right, anything else in relation to this then?
I think we can take comments and questions from the audience and comments and questions from Borough Council, and then close the hearing. You get 45 days to decide. You can decide tonight. You don't have to. That's under the law, the state law. You get 45 days to make a decision. But before you make a decision, you have to hear from Borough Council and the people in the audience, so.
Anybody there in the audience, comments, questions, anything else?
Owen Wilcox, 32 East School Street.
Stand up, please.
Oh.
What's your name?
Owen Wilcox, 32 East School Street.
Can you swear him in or no?
Are you good?
Just a comment or question
I don't think he needs to be sworn in just to ask a question or make a comment.
Can you just spell your name for me first and last?
W-E-N, W-I-L-C-O-X.
Go ahead.
So, I'm quite a bit of ways, from Hatfield, but, you know, on some clear nights you can hear it, but, you know, it doesn't really bother me. I mean, I can hear, you know, the movie night in the park a little bit louder. So you know, if it helps a local business, the last thing I'd wanna see is another business kind of shuttering within the borough. I mean, so, if it means anything, I support the request, and maybe a question, I mean, I doubt, it doesn't sound like it, but has the borough had any complaints about, you know, the property, you know, noise, so, thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? Any questions from Borough Council?
Bob, your past practice has been to end live music by 11 p.m.?
On the dot.
And you see no problem continuing that problem?
Correct. All the bands, when they're employed, are told that they have to stop by 11 o'clock.
All right. Anyone else from council? All right, Bob, thank you for your input. All right, we can move on then to the next item,
Greg, you wanna close the hearing now?
Yeah, we can close that hearing.
And, let the court reporter, tidy up and take off, because we don't need her. You, well, it's not on as an action item tonight. Right. So, why don't I, draft something up that you can look at for the next meeting?
Good.
And then if it suits your purpose, you can do it then, anytime within the next 45 days, so I'll try to get it done for the very next meeting, okay?
All right, good. All right, thank you. All right, next item is old business, the April 24th, 22 borough-wide power outage recap, and, oh, I'm sorry.
JP's more than welcome if she wants.
We're not at that anymore.
Page here. The reports from standing committees and the mayor. All right. We have a report for the Budget Finance and Labor Committee.
Good meeting report since, President Ferguson isn't here. I will just note that Budget Finance and Labor met, the end of April. We did a first quarter review of where we are for revenues and expenses. That was shared with, as I said, Budget Finance and Labor. And, we will continue to have those quarterly reviews and, start to, talk about the budget, at the next meeting, which we propose to be midsummer, and, kick that process off.
All right, the planning, building, and zoning committee report?
Yes, the committee did not meet, but the planning commission did meet this past Monday. They were also presented with the Loudenslager school apartments plan for their first look at that. The folks from Bennett's Court were also in, and that development is moving forward finally after sitting stagnant for some time now, so we're happy to see that moving forward. There's also an update on the Edinburgh Square and 43 Roosevelt Avenue project as well, which is, we're hoping to break ground in the near future.
All right, the public safety committee report?
We haven't had any meetings and there's nothing currently going on.
The utilities committee report, the only thing with the utilities committee is about the shutdown of the power. And we have a big thank you for folks here, especially Steve and his crew, as well as Carr and Duff for the smooth operation. My understanding is that the total outage was about an hour and a half instead of 4 hours, so we had quite a buffer there, and good job. We're all back in operation again. Also, there has been discussion about the delinquencies. Delinquencies are down, and there have been some shut-offs started now that the moratorium is over about shutting down and cutting off electricity for non-payment. The Hatfield Economic Revitalization Outreach Committee report. For old business, we have the Business of the Month recognition, the businesses for the month of May that are being honored are Walker and Sons Heating and Air Conditioning, Doyle's Restaurant, Giddens Nursery, and Dr. Larry Snyder. Our Earth Day wrap-up, the turnout was somewhat disappointing, possibly due to people throwing more things out during the COVID situation rather than recycling, and some of our inability to take certain items, resulting in residents going to Hatfield Township to drop items off there. We will be investigating ways of accepting more items for recycling next year if possible. Our newsletter, the first edition of the new Borough Informer, should be distributed by mid to late May, and there have been some minor problems with the contact mailing list, but it is expected that these were or will be shortly resolved. Founders Day is still scheduled for Monday, June 27th, but we will need more volunteers to man the various attractions and booths. We will be investigating if some scouts can be recruited to assist while earning credits for community service requirements. And most of the previous vendors will be returning along with the popular photo booth. Social media, it appears that the Facebook page and mailings were very effective in notifying and keeping residents informed about the 524 power outage, since there was very little impact and virtually no complaints from our residents. For new business, the committee financial report was presented, and there has been no change in the account balance since the last meeting. And memorial plaques, we are looking at additional options and locations for the memorial plaques being placed on park benches that we already have, and additional ones we will be purchasing, as well as various other structures within the borough where the plaques can be attached. And these include the gazebo in Electric Park and the bridge in Centennial Park. Any report from the Dual Action Committee?
The Dual Action Committee has not met.
Okay. And we have a report from Mayor Mary Ann Gerard.
I just want to report on a meeting I attended, a quarterly meeting on the North Montgomery County Recycling Commission. The DEP submitted a grant award for the 2020 reporting period of $281,851. This amount will be divvied up among the 11 participating municipalities, and we should expect something within 4 to 6 weeks. Also, the 2019 grant check to the borough in the amount of $5832.79 was never received, so a replacement check will be issued. The county recycling reports were submitted for 2021, and unfortunately, it looks like the commercial tonnage is down 26%, and the residential is down 9% from 2020. And I think if we looked at our recycling effort on our day, we are not surprised by that. Possible solutions to offset this, more education of everybody on our website and on the recycling website. Also, we're looking into creating activity packages to be distributed to the schools, because I think if you get the kids involved, maybe the adults will be involved also. Just reminding everybody that recycling is the law in Pennsylvania. And also reminding people, and perhaps people don't know this, but we get grants and money when we recycle. So this money can be put into projects in the borough and help offset borough expenses. I think that's about it. The next meeting is on July 14th. That's it.
Thank you. All right, and then we have the Public Works and Property and Equipment Committee report.
Yes, the Public Works, Property and Equipment Committee did meet on Wednesday, April 27th, and we went over, we met and discussed a number of issues, including the tent purchase for borough events. We went over several different scenarios and reasons for either buying a tent or renting a tent, and between the cost of buying a tent, storage concerns, as well as personnel that we would have to pay to put and take down the tent, in addition to added insurance costs, the committee really didn't see a reason to move forward with buying tents at this time, as we only use it for one event every year, and the rental costs are extremely reasonable. We decided we would recommend to continue renting tents for the foreseeable future. We also went over the banner and flag request policy. So currently, the borough does not have an official policy as far as if anyone wants to raise a non-government flag on our property. We do think that it would be a good idea to put some sort of policy in place as to whether it just be government-only flags or some way to screen applicants or people that want to put up their own flag. We want to continue the discussion of putting in place an official policy, and we want to continue that discussion with the solicitor as far as what it would look like to have a specific policy for, what kind of flags we want to fly on borough property. Steve, the Public Works Director, brought up a Paint the Plow program idea, which has been tried in some other school districts and areas. And essentially what they do is every year they paint the plows on the snow removal equipment. And it's basically a contest for school-age students and their art teachers, and they would essentially be judged based on this, their paintings. So it's kind of a way to get kids involved with, public works and, just really it's an exciting competition for kids in elementary school to get involved and paint the plows. We were waiting to hear back from the principal, I believe at Hatfield Elementary last we spoke, so assuming that they would like to move forward, we will look into that, but obviously we need children and school teachers involved with this, so if they're interested, we would look into that further. And lastly, the electric plant park water feature, we discussed the possibility of installing some sort of water feature here in Electric Plant Park. We didn't make any decisions on that, and we would like to have the opinion of the rest of the council and any citizens here as to what they would think about either installing a water feature, which was once, I believe, out towards the street, replacing that with a newer water feature. There were two additional topics that were brought up during our committee meeting. One involving the paving and milling on Poplar and East Lincoln. They are going to have some paving work done in the upcoming months, so we have to decide if that road will be closed for a couple days or if they will allow traffic through there. And no decision, I believe, has been made at this time as far as if those streets will be closed, except for local traffic will obviously be allowed. If you live on those streets, you'll still be allowed to traffic those areas. And lastly, Mr. Stevens brought up a good point here about historic signs. And he had come across a few, specifically, I believe, at, remind me the name of that? Plains Mennonite Park over on Orvilla Road. And they have a number of historical markers that commemorate different parts of the community. And Mr. Stevens was under the had the idea of possibly having two historical plaques installed in the community. One at the historic municipal building, I believe, on Cherry Street, and the other at the electric plant, where the electric plant was once located right out here. Yep. And essentially, these would just kind of be informative and explaining different features that once were in the community. I thought it was a great idea. We talked about what the materials would be to put the signs together and get some idea of the costs. Approximately $80 to $90 for each sign, and they would be specifically, as you can see, about Hatfield Borough historical, not events, but places. So we, at this point, we didn't make any official decisions, but we did, at least as a committee, wanted to look forward, to moving forward with that. So I think that was about it. Yeah, thank you. Anybody have any questions about any of that? I hope you could hear me. I know my microphone wasn't working.
I do have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned about the flags, coming up with some sort of policy. Does that also include, we have that banner that goes across Main Street down there by the Historical Society?
Yeah, we did discuss if that was included. The policy was.
I think we have a separate policy that talks about banners that fly over our streets, a separate one outside of this. This policy that we were talking about during the committee was specifically for flags flown on government property and banners that would be placed on utility poles. That would address this. Outside of that, I believe there is an existing policy for something over the Borough Road. But I did tell Larry that I would try to find that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, next item, reports and correspondence.
We have a representative from the police department here. I don't know if you see her in the back.
We have, first of all, the monthly investment report.
Okay.
So the cash report and monthly investment report was in your packets. During the Budget, Finance, and Labor Committee meeting, it was discussed regarding our investments that are on the following pages. We are aware that the investments right now are currently losing money. That's just the market that we're in. Right now, we are looking at what possibly we can do with these investments, if we're planning on leaving them as is and ride it out, if we're planning on waiting till the market hits 4% and take them out and invest into 10-year treasury notes, which is the idea. During the last Budget, Finance, and Labor meeting, the market had only reached 2.9%. We wouldn't be interested in moving the money until it reached 4%. So that's something that I am working with KeyBank, who manages our investments, to just keep a track on. As the feds keep putting hikes in, we will keep looking at our investments, and we will, Budget, Finance, and Labor will keep reviewing them and make any decisions necessary to secure these funds.
Thank you. All right, the monthly EIT and LST report.
The monthly EIT and LST report was in your packets. Just want to note that the total year-to-date was $132,909, which is roughly $10,000 higher than it was in 2021 for your EIT. And same for, not as much, but there is a $2,000 increase from 2021 to 2022 for the LST as of the end of April. So moving forward, this is look like we're tracking right on our budget, so we'll keep hoping these numbers come in the way they have been over the past several months.
The monthly year-to-date report.
The monthly year-to-date report was not in your packets due to the meeting just being only on the 4th of May. Diane will have that prepared, and it will be in for the regular meeting on May 18th.
The Hatfield Police Department report.
In addition to what you have in your packet, I just want to let you know that Blaine Avenue was still being monitored by the officers. They conducted 18 more selective enforcements, and there were no violations seen. So it's still at 0 for that. And we also were alerted to, apparently there's a small group of either juveniles with dirt bikes that have been seen through Centennial Park and going down the Liberty Trail. Usually they're quick down the trail and out before we even get the call, but officers are aware of it and they're monitoring that.
Thank you. The fire department report.
The fire department report was in your packets. Year-to-date total calls are 87, and 11 of those are in Hatfield Borough.
The EMS report.
The EMS report was in your packets. There were 14 total calls in Hatfield Borough for the month of April, which makes up only 2% of the total calls for the month of April for the VMSC.
Public Works Department report.
So, just want to make a slight correction. Don't want to make it worse than what it was. It was an hour and 5 minutes.
Oh. Excuse me.
Hour and 6 maybe, depending on where you live. But yeah, obviously that's the big thing that I'm going to be talking about. Everything obviously went very well, better than planned. I mean, it was great. Thanks to Carr and Duff for all the hard work they did and all the preparation they did in advance, having everything ready to go. So when the lights went out, the guys jumped right on it. We were actually sitting there waiting for 20 minutes until 12:01 until we could actually turn everything off. That's how prepared everything was. So, unless anybody else has any other questions about anything else, that's about all I had to add.
I want to extend the borough's, the borough council thanks to you and your crew and Carr and Duff for what they did. You know, it was exceptionally well handled. And hopefully, we won't have to go through that again in the near future.
At least 30 more years.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The engineering report.
Chad's report was in our packets this evening, just highlighting a few items. The final change order for establishing the final contract cost for the scope has been prepared for Borough Council's approval for the Orchard Lane and Forest Way sanitary sewer replacement project. That is on for further discussion in this meeting. And he is currently working on a updated zoning map to just provide further clarity as we were going through the codification process. We had actually noticed that the map could use updating, and when he got into updating that, there are some lines and boundaries that need to be addressed. When he gets the updated map with kind of zoomed in images on these lines, I will take it to the Planning, Building, and Zoning Committee for review, also the solicitor, and then it will be on for discussion for Borough Council to review before you would need to adopt an updated zoning map. So we're still a little bit of ways from that to happening, but it is something we are looking at that we came across during the codification.
All right, thank you. The fire marshal and fire safety inspection report?
So, the fire marshal fire safety inspection report, just to let you know, I will touch on the code department with that fire safety inspections, notices have gone out and payments have been coming in, and scheduling, has been taking place when the, payments for fire safety have come in.
All right, and the pool advisory report?
Pool advisory report was included in your packets. I just wanted to draw your attention to items that the mural that we had spoke about previously is pushed to be completed in July, that is outside the aquatic center, and that season passes seem to have been issued, roughly around 500 so far. So it looks like things are picking up again and people are getting back and enjoying outdoors, and we should see a successful season at the aquatic center.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next item is the manager's report.
In my report was included in the packets. I'll just touch on a couple items. Larry touched on Bennett's Court that came to the Planning Commission on Monday. It looks like that is continuing to move forward. Vice President Gerard touched on delinquencies. There are shut-off notices sent out for May as well. The total for April was actually under 1% delinquencies. We haven't seen that in years here. So I'm really proud of the utility department for keeping up with that and getting residents to catch up on their past due bills. For some projects, the 2022 ADA ramp and curb project, we had a pre-construction meeting on April 21st, and we're looking to start that project in mid-May. For our 2022 roadway resurfacing project, we had our pre-bid meeting in April 27th, and we have our bid opening on May 11th. The CTP Firehouse Flasher Grant got an updated estimated time that it looks, the mast arm looks to be installed the end of June, early July of 2022. The PMEA update, the April newsletter is attached, was included in my packet. And some items of interest to let you know that PMEA, we will have a gathering at PSAB. If you're at PSAB and attending and you're out there on Saturday night, myself and Jeffrey Stonehill, which is the manager of Chambersburg, is going to host a gathering on behalf of PMEA to just talk about some public power if you happen to be out at PSAB on Saturday night. I was appointed the treasurer of PMEA, so I currently serve as the secretary of PMEA, and the treasurer has taken on a new role in government, and she will be leading the Heighton Borough. So Hatfield Borough and myself has been appointed as PMEA treasurer, and I did pick up the laptop and all documents today, so I will be assuming that role right away.
In your spare time.
Yeah, in my spare time, yes. And we did receive payment for the East Broad Street truck accident. If you were familiar, last year there was an accident, I believe October, on East Broad, and we had to work with the solicitor's office to receive payment. Normally, trucking companies send their payments quite early, and often when that happens, this was when we had to get the solicitor's office involved in, but we did receive payment of the $23,565, which was the total bill for the lost damages for Hatfield Borough for that accident back in October.
All right, new business and discussion items. We have resolution 2022-06, the transfer of funds for the May debt service payment.
So resolution 2022-06 discusses the transfer of funds for the May debt service payment. In May, we have a debt service payment of $127,734.86. This debt service payment is for monies that we have borrowed over the years, including the 2020 series notes. Also, our interest payments on the 2003 B series note and the 2021 A and B series note. So in May, we have to make a payment of $127,000. We currently do have money to pay the debt service payment out of our borrowed funds. So we had borrowed funds in 2021, a Series A and a Series B, in Harleysville Savings Bank. Right now, we currently have, still left in that bank, $820,000. We have projects that are gonna come out of that borrowed fund, like the CDBG project, we have the MTF grant, we have the guide rail on Poplar Street that we previously talked about. We will need roughly $656,000 to complete all those projects, which what we borrowed the money for. That would leave us, with $163,604 and some change left over, which is plenty of money to pay the May debt service of $127,000. So this resolution authorizes Borough Council to do that. That just means we are gonna take the money out of the Harleysville Business Savings Bank, and we're gonna transfer it to the capital projects at TD Bank to pay our 2022 May debt service payment. This was discussed during Budget, Finance, and Labor at our committee meeting in April, and they did recommend to move forward.
All right, next item is Resolution 2022-07, recognizing National Police Week.
Resolution 2022-07 recognizes National Police Week. This is a resolution that Borough Council enacts every year to just honor the police and those that sacrificed their time and their lives in the line of duty.
Next item, Resolution 2022-08, the transfer of funds for the guide rail on Poplar Street.
Resolution 2022-08, transfer of funds for the guide rail on Poplar Street. We had spoke about a few meetings back that there seemed to be, during the Public Works Committee, we talked about and we brought it to council, that there seemed to be some maybe safety concerns now that some trees had been taken down on Poplar Street, and it was talked about moving forward of putting a guide rail up. So the guide rail was put up, and the invoice for that was $9,990, and we talked about taking those funds out of the borrowed funds, which we have that we used to complete the bridge project, as this could go correlate with the bridge project. So again, we are asking to take from the Priority Business Savings Banking at Harleysville Bank the $9,990 and transfer that to the general fund to pay the invoice for the guide rail that was installed on Poplar Street.
All right, the next item, Resolution 2022-09, recognizing the Public Works Week.
Resolution 2022-09 recognizes National Public Works Week. So this is just a resolution for Borough Council to recognize all the hard work that our Public Works crew does here in Hatfield Borough and all the Public Works crews do around the country, and I believe in Canada as well.
Next item, Resolution 2022-10, Serco, Hatfield Rubber, 60 years of business here in Hatfield Borough.
Resolution 2022-10 regarding Serco and Hatfield Rubber is just to honor that they have been a borough business for 60 years now. So we're asking Borough Council to honor them and present them with a resolution and thanking them for being a borough business for 60 years.
The next item is virtual public meetings, and I'll be taking this one. We had discussed earlier about the possibility of going back to our Zoom meetings, despite the fact that the COVID situation is over, at least pretty much over, to allow people to have more access to our public meetings here without having to come in, to Borough Hall. And we discussed it earlier and just wanted to see where we stood with this, and do we want to proceed any further to institute this down the line?
Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
The borough code still requires that the borough members be here physically.
Right.
At least a quorum of them. There are only certain excuses you can have for not being here, like a business trip, care of a newborn, care of an older person, that kind of stuff. So I guess what you're talking about is hybrid meetings, right?
Right.
Because you
For
physically.
For the public, not for us.
Right, because you're required to physically be here, and then what you're talking about is broadcasting it simultaneously or something like that.
Right.
Okay,
Yes,
just want
this
to make
would
that
open it
clear.
up more to the people that couldn't be here because of commitments, because of family, whatever reason, and they would still like to come to meetings, as I mentioned. I found out when we were walking around, talking to people, that a number of them had said, yeah, well, we might like to come to the meetings, but we can't because of certain circumstances. And they COVID situation. So we looked into the possibility of continuing, starting that up again, as well as the live meeting in progress at the same time.
Right, there's two ways that you could do it, and I think I know which one you're talking about. One would be you simply videotape it and run that live. But the Zoom would allow for public participation. And so, that's a matter of whether we have the right equipment or can pull that off. They're both allowed. You know, as long as you're physically here, or a quorum of you is physically here, you're certainly allowed to do that. I've seen townships do it all different kinds of ways. I've seen them do it by Zoom, hybrid meetings. I've also seen them tape it and put it on the website the next day or a couple days later or something like that. So, I mean, it's all allowable from a legal point of view.
Well, since we have done it already, I mean, we have the capability of doing it. The only problem that I ran into, we had, the last meeting, we had a gentleman on through Zoom with the sound, trying to get that through there. And you had mentioned about the possibility, our system now that we have, that could be, plugged in to have that, alleviate that problem that we encountered before. So I don't know if we want to take it any further, general discussion, do we want to?
I will say Katie and I have done our research on this. Katie and I are looking into possibilities. I think you have to make a decision as a council. Would you like to move forward and just have, audience be able to participate from home and have interaction? And if you wanna have interaction for them to participate at home, who is running that, who is monitoring that? Katie monitors here, so Katie cannot monitor over there, nor can anyone up here, so that would be another staff member. Or we can look into maybe figuring something else out. Right now, that you would have to do it that way. Somebody else would have to monitor, because the equipment can't be combined right now, what we have. We would just need some updated equipment. Or do you just wanna live stream a meeting, and because we currently record on Zoom over there, that's one of the recordings that we do, that could just be live streamed, and everybody at home would be able to watch the meeting going live. They just would not be able to interact, but they could watch live. They could easily submit questions prior to the council meeting. You know, if Mrs. Smith on School Street had a question, she could submit it, and the president could read it out loud during public comment, and then she could see it live that those questions were being asked, and she could watch her presentation live. She just could not comment or ask questions during that. I think they're two separate things, and council needs to decide which way they wanna go. And then staff in-house can get you prices or the way we can implement these, moving forward. So I think council should decide or talk about what way you wanna move forward with that and which option, and then in-house staff can do research and have meetings to say what our equipment can and can't do right now. And which we know sound is an issue. And we know that we've talked to R&R Data who installed the system, and we're actually setting up a call to see how we have such a system, we should be able to hear a little bit better and interact a little bit better. I'm sure there's options we can do, we just don't know how to use it. So, I think that's a discussion that you guys have to have, what route you wanna go, and then direct us in-house, staff, whichever route you decide, if you decide on any route, and then we'll research that and get back to you and be able to provide some numbers, if numbers are needed, and a way to do it.
Could you clarify for me, you said about if we wanted to have an interactive, experience, that we would need an additional staff member?
Right, so if we're having Zoom, right, and Zoom's on that computer over there, that's just over there, so who would, if Katie's sitting here running the meeting and switching everything on here, that this screen's for the public to follow along in the packet, because we don't provide packets for the public when they come in. Who would, during public comment period, sit over there and say, Ms. Smith on School Street wants to ask X, Y, and Z, and then you respond, or there's comments coming in a lot of times during the vote. Residents have comments or questions, someone would have to go monitor, is there a comment or is there a question? So, I guess the question would be, who would be doing that?
Did you do everything on one computer at the last meeting, or was that?
She did, because they were doing a presentation, so if you wanna do it all on one computer, Katie would then have to that would be up to you guys, taking the meeting minutes, running the computer from here, and Zoom.
That's my question.
Yes.
How-
Then Zoom is gonna be up on here, and the live stream
You
will
did
be
it
up
so
on
well,
here.
so I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could become complicated.
Yeah.
You know, because she's gonna wind up
Yeah.
trying to do so many different things at one time. So maybe we ought to just look at possibly just doing the live stream
seen that, and I've also seen during a live stream meeting that got hot and heavy, people start coming in. I mean, people, they don't live that far, and they, you know what I mean, I've seen that happen at a township, that the people start coming in, joining in, so that would be one way they could participate if they felt motivated enough to do that.
I think the gist of it is just to have it so that, you know, we have the transparency and people won't have an excuse to say, well, I didn't know anything about this. Well, you will, because even if you can't physically get in here, we're gonna have it out there for you to view at home, so you'll know what's going on. You know, that's my idea, and I think from my discussions with the fellow council members, that, you know, the same thing that they have. So I'm leaning towards, okay, maybe the Zoom idea isn't a good idea, but at least do the live stream.
Yeah, I think both options are valid. I'd be happy to research both and implement whatever, Katie and I would be happy to implement whatever council decides. I know, just knowing what our equipment is, if you wanted to live stream from Zoom and cut off all, like, participation, you could easily do that tomorrow. That could be accessible in what we have now. If you want the interaction portion, I'm not objecting, or Katie is objecting to looking into it. It just takes a little bit more research to get our equipment
And
done.
I think that's overburdened.
Yeah, I don't think we need to bring another staff member in.
So what do you, with fellow council members, what do you feel? Which,
I think that's a good approach.
the live streaming or?
I agree with that. This seems more cost efficient too.
I mean, I would wanna at least look at the option of allowing people to participate, if at all possible. I mean, essentially, I don't know, I think it's worth looking into. Just because, I mean, if we're gonna allow people to participate, we should allow them to really participate and have their questions answered in real time, if that's possible. And I don't know if, like, maybe if it's too much to have just a public comment, like she would go over to the computer during public comment to see if anybody raises their hand, and then kind of don't allow, you know, don't allow them to talk at other times, but, you know, at least have that one dedicated time where we're looking for people to have interaction. And then, I don't know, I think it's worth looking into, and I don't think it would be, especially when we have this, you know, new system, I think we should use it to its fullest capabilities, in my opinion.
All right, why don't we do this then? Why don't you look into both aspects of it, and we'll go from there and see what we think is the best.
You know, definitely bring it up with whoever installed the system and see what
Yeah, we do
their
have a-
opinion is.
We do have a meeting set up with them already, because, I know we've had this discussion before, and I know Rich and I have had the discussion offline of just the capabilities, and I don't see why we cannot do it. I don't see why we can't do it. I'm assuming some might come with a little bit of cost, but I think it might just be educating about the system and learning how to use the system a little bit better, and we have the resources to do so. So I have no problem, Katie and I can look in, I can get a cost sheet together if there are costs associated with it, and present that to council, no problem.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item is resolution 2022-11, tax certification fees.
This idea came from one of the committees or from the tax collector?
The tax collector requested it.
Right, the tax collector asked if you just do a flat fee of $30 for tax certification instead of the way it currently works, which is $20 for the first year and $5 for each additional year. So I did prepare a little resolution to that effect. The ordinance says you can change the fees by resolution or by ordinance. Now, the tricky thing is you cannot change the tax collector's compensation except in an election year, I believe, and before a certain date in an election year. So, you know, a guy gets elected to the job, they know what they're running for and what they're gonna get. We defined this in the ordinance, we must have been thinking that way a long time ago, as these are not compensation, but as costs.
Right, two separate
Yeah.
items.
Two separate items, because they do get a certain compensation. In this borough, they think they get a flat fee, don't they?
Right.
Yeah, they in some places they get 1% or something like that, but in the borough, they get a flat fee. And so I think these still qualify as a cost, so you could raise it, make it a flat, $30. Now, my only question was, I'm assuming that means that fee of $20 for requested search and computer printout, and $5 for any requested duplication of a tax bill. I'm assuming they stay the same, is that correct?
Yeah, he's just asking just for the tax certification.
Okay, fine. I just wanted to make sure I was clear on that, and that it's written clearly, you know, to do
That's the
that.
only thing, he was just designing the tax certification only, so.
Fine.
All right. And, the next item is the change order request number 2 for Orchard Lane and Forest Way sanitary
Great, so,
sewer replacement.
hold on for
project.
1 second. So is this something, do we need any change to this, or are we gonna work on this tonight?
It would be
For
on
the
the,
regular
would be
meeting.
on for consideration at the regular
Okay.
meeting, if you wanted to move forward with it.
Right,
Yeah.
and being a resolution, it doesn't need any advertisement, which is another great thing about that. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Next item, the change order request number 2 for Orchard Lane and Forest Way sanitary sewer replacement project.
This change order request, number 2, is to reconcile the final contract costs based on items and quantities installed in the field. This would include replacement of the damaged storm pipe and curbing we had previously discussed in a couple meetings prior. This change order also includes a credit to the borough in lieu of the contractor completing certain punch list items. Those items were also included in your packet, such as final lawn restoration, cut down lateral cleanouts, some sidewalk areas, and clean utility covers and sealants for concrete. Hatfield Borough has taken that out of the contract, and final restoration is being done by our own landscaper, and some of it was done by Public Works already. So this change order request just changes the contract from $342,050 to $359,770.26. That's an increase of $17,720.26. This change order has to be enacted before we can make final payment because it changes the contract amount. So the contract, in the contract documents, is listed a certain way. It has to be changed by a motion from council to be able to make final payment. I will note that we budgeted for this project $383,000. That's the money that we borrowed for this project, so we still, with the change order of $17,000, are under budget.
All right, old business, the April 24th, 2022 borough-wide power outage recap.
I think Steve touched base on this during your Public Works report. We just wanted to put it on here, and especially to say thank you to Steve and the Car and Duff crew for doing such a great job. And Steve commented on the amount of time that it took and the dedication to set everything up, from getting the notices out to all the residents, to getting this completed that night in 1 hour and 6 minutes. So, you're welcome. So just thank you to everybody and the residents as well for understanding that this was necessary updates for maintenance on our system for better reliability.
Okay. All right. Action items. We have a motion to consider the resolution 2022-07 recognizing National Police Week. I'm sorry. I keep skipping these things. Like my thumb here. Motion to consider resolution 2022-06, the transfer of funds for the May debt service payment in the amount of $128,000.
So moved.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilman Stevens and seconded by Councilman Fagan. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, unanimous. The next item, motion to consider the resolution 2022-07 for recognizing National Police Week.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilperson Kressler and seconded by Councilman Stevens. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next item, motion to consider resolution 2022-09, recognizing Public Works Week. We have a motion.
We skipped one again.
See, this keeps, yeah, it's, yeah, you're right. All right, where were we at here? Motion to consider the resolution 2022-08, transfer of funds from the guide rail on Poplar Street in the amount of $9,990.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Fagan and a second by Councilperson Kressler. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion to consider resolution 2022-09, recognizing the Public Works Week.
So moved?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilperson Kressler and a second by Councilman Fagan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to consider change order request number 2 for the Orchard Lane and Forest Way sanitary sewer replacement project in the amount of $17,720.26, to bring the total contract amount to $359,770.26. In the motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Stevens, seconded by Councilman Fagan. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. That's about it. We have a motion for adjournment.
So moved?
Second.
And we have a motion to adjourn by Councilman Stevens and seconded by Councilperson